The elevator doors were closing when a hand shot between them, and Dr. Nathan Reyes stepped in like he owned the building, which, in a way, he sort of did. He'd won Best Young Researcher at this same conference 2 years running, and everyone in cardiology knew his name before they knew his face. "You're presenting against me tomorrow," he said. Not even a hello, just that, like an accusation. "I'm presenting at the same time slot as you," I corrected, clutching my poster tube like a weapon. "There's a difference." "Is there?" He looked at me properly then, and I watched something shift behind his eyes. Surprise, maybe, that I wasn't backing down. "Dr. Voss, right? The perfusion study. I read the abstract. It's good." "Don't sound so shocked." The doors opened onto the 9th floor and he held them, waiting for me to walk out first, which annoyed me more than it should have, because it was polite, and I didn't want him to be polite. "I'm Elena Voss, second-year cardiology fellow, and I'd flown to this conference in San Diego with exactly one goal: get my research noticed before the hiring committees started circling for fellowship spots. Nathan Reyes had the same goal. We'd been circling each other on conference programs and journal tables of contents for 18 months without ever meeting. Two names that kept landing on the same shortlists, the same competitive grant pools, and I'd built him up in my head as some kind of golden boy villain, the guy who always got the byline first. Meeting him in person ruined that story a little. He had a tired crease between his eyebrows and coffee stains on his cuff, and when the elevator jolted, he put a hand out to steady himself against the wall instead of against me, which I noticed, and hated that I noticed. "Drink?" he said. "Neutral ground. We can talk about literally anything except mitral valves." "I have a talk to finish." "So do I. That's not what I asked." I should have said no. Every rational part of me, the part that had spent 3 years building a career out of not being distracted, said no. But there's a particular loneliness to conference hotels, all that recycled air and name badge small talk, and something about the way he asked made it feel less like a line and more like an honest question. So I said yes, and we ended up in the hotel bar with 2 glasses of bad red wine, and somehow 4 hours disappeared. He told me about his father, a general practitioner in a town so small the county had 1 stoplight, and how he used to ride along on house calls before he understood what any of it meant. I told him about the ICU where I did my residency, about a night shift so bad I cried in a supply closet and then went back out and finished the shift anyway, because that's what you do. He didn't try to fix that story or make it smaller. He just said, "Yeah, that's the job," like he'd been in that closet too, a different one, a different year. Maybe you know that feeling. Meeting someone you were braced to dislike, and instead finding the one person in the room who actually gets the exhaustion underneath the achievements. I wonder if that's more dangerous than any stranger, honestly. A rival who understands you is so much harder to keep at arm's length than one who doesn't. The talks the next morning were, infuriatingly, both good. Mine ran 20 minutes before his, same room, half the same audience carrying over. I watched him from the back for the last 10 minutes of his presentation, and he found me in the crowd once, right in the middle of a sentence about outcome data, and didn't lose his place, but his mouth twitched like he wanted to smile and knew better. Afterward, in the hallway outside the ballroom, a program director from a hospital in Chicago, the fellowship, the one we both wanted, the reason either of us had gotten on a plane, pulled us both aside separately within the same hour to say how impressed she was. Separately, like she hadn't noticed we'd walked in together. "They're going to pit us against each other," Nathan said later, low, over conference center coffee that tasted like scorched cardboard. "1 spot, maybe 2 if the budget holds." "I know." "Does that bother you?" "Because it should bother you. It bothers me, and I'm the one who's supposed to be ruthless." "Who told you you're supposed to be ruthless?" "Everyone. My mentor. The article that called me formidable, like it was a compliment." He rubbed his eyes. "I don't want to be formidable with you, Elena." That was the first time he used my first name, and it landed somewhere under my ribs I wasn't prepared for. I want to tell you I handled it well, that I drew a clean line and kept my head down for the rest of the conference like a sensible person. I did not. We ended up walking the boardwalk that night instead of going to the sponsored dinner, both of us skipping the free shrimp cocktail to talk about nothing important. And he reached for my hand somewhere around the pier, and I let him. And for about 11 minutes I forgot entirely that in 6 weeks a committee was going to choose one of us over the other. "This is a bad idea," I said, because someone had to say it out loud. "Probably the worst idea either of us has had this year," he agreed, not letting go. "I've built my whole career on not being the doctor who gets distracted. I've built mine on not losing, so we're both about to do something out of character." He turned to face me fully, and the pier lights were doing something unfair to his face. "Tell me to stop, and I will. I mean that." I didn't tell him to stop. That's the part I still turn over, months later. Not the kiss, though I remember that too, salt air and cheap wine on both our breath, but the choosing. The moment I decided that whatever this cost me professionally, I'd rather know than wonder. The fellowship announcement came in September. They split it. 2 positions after all, budget be damned, some late lobbying from the program director who apparently liked the idea of 2 rising names under one roof. Nathan and I ended up colleagues instead of competitors, which sounds like a tidy ending and mostly is, except tidy isn't the same as easy. We still argue about research design in a way that draws stares in the break room. He still hates that I'm usually right. I still hate how smug he looks when he's right, which is often enough to be annoying. Some mornings, walking into rounds together, I think about how close I came to treating him like an obstacle instead of a person, and I wonder how many people do exactly that. Mistake the person running the same race for someone who's in their way, when actually they might be the only one who understands exactly how heavy the finish line is. I don't know if that's a lesson or just luck. I know that the elevator doors closing on us that first day would have been so much easier. I'm glad they didn't.